Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. So today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about collections, and actually, more like what do I want to collect and not collect. Now, I never really saw myself as a collector in the kind of scope of some other collectors that want to complete an entire collection, or perhaps they want to collect everything nostalgic, everything vintage, everything old, everything video gaming. And then there's some that really get into a series and then they just want to collect everything that has that, logo on it. I've never really been that type. I've kind of been very selective. I mean, I do have the odd little things here and there from stuff that I like, maybe given to me as gifts from, family or whatever. But, I mean, I'm not the kind that will just, go to the store, and if I see something with The Legend of Zelda printed on it, I have to have it. And when it comes to my video gaming systems, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, I've had, a lot of my systems I've had now for quite some time. I don't even remember the last system I bought, outside of, say, the Wii, which was really, a little bit different. When I bought the Wii, I wasn't really thinking about it in that kind of regards of nostalgic or old or anything like that. It was just, it looked cool. I like the Wii Sports. But I mean, as far as buying stuff, I don't go to the flea markets and constantly buy all new things all the time, or old new things. I mean, I have a few things I have a couple of Ataris. Now, I think most Atari players end up getting quite a few of them in their collection. Like, this is an Atari 2600 Junior. This is the second Junior I have. I mean, I have my original one that I got when I was younger, a teenager. And this was like a second one I picked up with a lot of games. Now, I knew that it would be useful to me because I love the Atari. So, I mean, I picked it up. It was a good price. And I thought, why not? It's like a backup to me. What if my other Atari goes? I have a backup. But then I was thinking about other systems. And I know people have asked me, if you ever thought about getting a certain system, or even myself, I've asked myself that. So I kind of was looking around at what other systems I would kind of consider, and maybe consider it and maybe not consider it. And I came up with a small list of systems that I've always kind of thought in the back of my head. And before I start with the first one, I just want to mention the Magnavox Odyssey. Now, it's one of those systems. It's got a lot of history to it, and it looks like an interesting piece to own. But I think it's almost useless. It's literally just a collector's piece. It's something you would buy and literally just put on your shelf and admire it. And the reason is, I mean, the games on it are just simple blocks, square blocks of light. It requires an old TV with overlays. I mean, it was kind of the first video game console. I think it was the first video game console to actually hit the market. I made some notes just so I wouldn't screw it up because, my memory's horrible. But it looked like it was made in 1972. I mean, that's before I was born. And, it's kind of like a console where it has, cartridges, but they're not really cartridges. A little bit different are circuit boards. You kind of, interchange them, and it kind of rewires the system to play a different game. So they're not actually, they don't have all the RAM and or the ROM and all that stuff on there. It's a little bit of a different technology. But, I mean, you have to give it credit for being, the first to actually hit the home market and have the kind of interchangeable cartridge ideas. But the one that I was kind of considering was the Odyssey 2, which came out a little bit later. I mean, they had a whole bunch of Pong consoles, but the Odyssey 2 really looked interesting to me. And I believe the first time I ever heard of it, I saw the Cinemassacre, the Angry Video Game Nerd. I don't know if it was one of his nerd videos or what, but I remember he kind of did a video on it, and I never even heard of the system. And I was kind of, intrigued by it. The graphics are really, I don't know, not to be admired, but, I mean, it does have that kind of old, nostalgic look to it. It's got a membrane keyboard. I mean, it was made in 1978, just before the Atari got released, the Atari 2600, or VCS, as we all know it. And, I mean, and it did have cartridges. I mean, removable cartridges with different games. They're not the greatest, but, I mean, it just looked like something cool to have and actually kind of playable. Something that I would actually consider giving it a whirl. And that's the type of thing that I would want to pick up. Even though chances are I wouldn't be playing it as often as, say, my Atari or my Intellivision or Commodore. But it just, to me, it would actually have a play value, not just a shelf value. And that's kind of what I was getting at when I was thinking about this. And of course, I'd have to find one for a good price. I wouldn't want to scour the internet and pay a ridiculous amount of money for something like that, right? It's just not my thing. I wouldn't want to do that. So it would have to be, pretty reasonable before I would even consider it. Because to spend that kind of money just to, put it on your shelf and hope you play it one day, well, again, if you're a dedicated collector and you want to have everything retro game related, sure, but not really for me. And then moving on up, I mean, I did think about the Fairchild Channel F a little bit, but there's a few things I'm not sure about. The controllers are weird to me. The game selections are odd. I don't know. I kind of skipped over that one. And then I started thinking about like the Atari 5200 as being one of the Atari consoles that I don't actually have. I do have the 2600 and I do have the 7800, but I don't have the 5200, which is the bigger model. Came out kind of in between the two systems, and it's intriguing. It's got a great history, but I mean, I'm on the fence about it. I mean, whether I would actually need a system like that, the space it would take up. I like the games though. The games are what kind of sell me on it. I mean, it's all the original classic video games like Pac-Man, Cuber, those classic type of games, and part of why it didn't, why it had problems in the market was because, the other systems, like especially when Nintendo came out, the Atari 5200 came out in '82, which is good because that's just around the time when the 2600 was starting to fade. But that's exactly the time when the video game crash in North America happened. So it's kind of bad timing for something like that to come out. And then when the Nintendo came out in '85, '86, nobody would even care about half of the games that were on the 5200. But that's not why I wouldn't want it. I mean, I think there's a few problems with it that I didn't like. I didn't like, obviously, the controllers get a lot of attention. A lot of people don't really like the controllers on the 5200. Some swear by them, though. My problem is that it's not easy to get them interchangeable with other controllers. And like I've heard a lot of talk about repairing them, getting refurbished ones, and all that other stuff, and also the way that the stick moves. It's kind of like I don't know what they call it. It's like a directional thing. It's not a lot like an analog, or well, I don't know. I don't get into the specifics, the technical specifics of it, but it's a little bit different than these things. Put it that way. From what I understand, you move it to the left, and then you have to center it again. Whereas these like always go back to the center. Little things like that where I was kind of unsure. But I would say also the main reason, again, is finding one, a decent shape one that works, and then sourcing out the games. I don't know. I'm on the fence about that. I don't know. I never really ripped into the system to call it a horrible system. I know it has that kind of feedback. People say it's a terrible system, but I know a lot of people who swear by it. So I'm definitely on the fence on whether I actually try and track one down and get one. And, I've always felt I have the 2600, I have the 7800, so I'm pretty happy with those. Now, moving on from the 5200, and I remember I asked this question on the Atari Age forum about should I pick up an Atari 5200, and what some people came back with is saying, no, skip over that, go to the 8-bit computers, because the Atari 5200 essentially is kind of the same as the 8-bit computers. And the ones that I'm kind of referring to are the Atari 400 and the Atari 800. I actually read somewhere, I'm drawing a blank now where I read it, but one of the developers said that the Atari 5200 is essentially a repackaged Atari 400. Obviously without the keyboard, without, all the things that come with the computer. Now, the Atari 400 and 800 are actually computers. So they actually have a keyboard, just like the Odyssey 2 I mentioned with the... from what I understand, the Atari 400 has the membrane keyboard, which is kind of that flat, kind of bubbly shaped thing, not actually keys like we have on our keyboards today. And the 800 actually has a full-on keyboard. And it's got like a few other extra things to it. I've been kind of going back and forth on this. Lately I've been seeing a lot of people talking about them, and I know I posed a question on the Atari Age group about should I be picking up the games, because I don't have one right now. I don't have an Atari computer. I always thought, do I really need one? But now I'm starting to think about it, and I'm starting to see the games, and I'm like, maybe I should be picking them up, because one day I will acquire the computer. One of them, anyways, a 400 or an 800, I don't know. Really the question is, again, do I want to start buying this stuff just to put away in my man cave? You know, to me, it's not, I don't want to just buy games just to display them. All of these games, well, the majority of them anyways, have meaning to me. I mean, I bought them because I liked them, not because I just saw them for sale, was like, I want it all. That's why my selection isn't that big. I mean, if you compare to some other collectors out there who have like walls and walls of video games, mine's actually pretty small. And, you know, these are the Nintendo games that I had as a kid. You know, a few I might have picked up when, at the end of the, you know, the lifespan of the Nintendo. When they were cheaper, I might have grabbed some. And the Atari, most of the time I bought large lots of games, so whatever ones I didn't want, I ended up trading off and getting rid of them. So most of this stuff is what I actually enjoy, and that's what I keep in my collection. I don't just buy for the sake of buying, and that was what I was kind of getting me worried about. You know, should I start buying these Atari cartridges? It'll look cool in my collection, but I want them to be able to play them. And if I can't get my hands on the computer, is it worth it for me to actually pick these games up? Most people are like, yeah, get your hands on them. You know, they're old. If you can get them at a good price, why not? You could probably find a computer pretty cheap. You know, go for the 400. They're fairly cheap. You know, all that. So most of the discussion was like, yeah, I probably should grab them. So I'm still on the fence about that. You know, again, I still play my Commodore 64. I still play my like I have a ColecoVision there. I have a Atari and television. So how many more systems do I need to add to my collection, right? So, moving on from that, I know there's also an XL and an XE, which kind of like the same idea of the Atari 400, 800, except, you know, more of a gaming console, not so much a computer. Again, it would be something like if I found them at a reasonable price, I would probably grab it. But I don't know. I don't know what I should get out of all of these type of things. I don't want to get them all. I mean, I'm not interested in just collecting all of them. And so it's really you know, a thought process as to what would be more interesting to want to spend my money on. And you know, the XL and the XE, they look promising. They're kind of like individual systems. Plus, they play games, I believe, that the other systems can't play. So you got a bigger library. Seems like it's a better investment. Again, it's going to come down to price. Now, price is an issue because a lot of retro stuff is popular now. Whenever anybody going to a flea market or anywhere, someone realizes they have something old, they immediately think it's valuable. And I see a lot of these posts on Atari Age, most of the time on the Facebook group. People will post like, check this guy's post out, and it's like, you know, very standard system or video game, and they want like hundreds of dollars for it, and it's only worth like 15. You know, things like that. So you got to be wary that a lot of people are just going to try and sell these things for way more than what they're worth. And the other thing is age. These things age. They do break. And so if you want to have all these systems, you have to know how to get them repaired or repair them yourself. And that's another worry of mine, to end up with all these systems. I already have a VIC-20, Commodore VIC-20 that I picked up a while ago, and it just stopped working on me. So I have all these games, and I don't have the system anymore. So kind of worries me. I don't know what I should do. I don't know if I should get it fixed, if I should buy a new one, if I should just get rid of it all. I don't know. I don't want it taking up space. So the last one I wanted to throw in there was another one that, you know, always crosses any collector's mind, any retro video game, you know, nostalgic person, all that, is the Vectrex. It's another one of those hit and miss. You've got to find them at a reasonable price because some people want lots of money for them. In fact, I've seen them, I'm thinking the highest I've ever seen it so far has been around $400. And, I mean, you're getting a full-on system. I mean, you're getting the monitor, and, you know, that's the way it's sold. It's sold as like almost like you take a small TV, you turn it upside, you know, you turn it lengthwise, and the system's built inside, and it has a controller built into it. And the graphics, it plays like a vector style, vector-based graphics. You know, everything's more lines, and it's black and white. I never heard of the system when I was a kid. I never seen them. I didn't know it existed. It's not something I started to learn until much later. I mean, like, only a few years back did I actually start hearing this system even existed. And then I started seeing them in stores, like local, neighborhood video gaming stores. But again, they want like $300-400. I don't want to spend that kind of money. And frankly, the games to me don't look that appealing. So is it something that would be worth buying just to say, hey, I got a Vectrex and put it into my collection? Because that's what I think a lot of people do. And I've seen a lot of collectors online, and a lot of even YouTubers and stuff. I've seen their backgrounds, and they always seem to have a Vectrex sitting there. Whether they ever play the thing is a completely different story. I think it's just there for eye candy. I got a Vectrex. And, like I said, if it's something that I would be interested in playing and taking it out every once in a while and having fun with it, I'd probably consider it. But because, to me, it's something that's new that I've never heard of, even though it's not new. In fact, the Vectrex was one of the systems during the video game crash that ended up being sold for dirt cheap. So, out of all of them that got sold, most of the people that bought them probably only paid like $50 to $100. So, brand new. Now they're being sold for like $400. It doesn't make sense. Of course, the other issue is repairing them if they break. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. Just the thought of what should I do to expand, because I've been thinking about it. I mean, I've been showing off a lot of different consoles that I have, a lot of different games that I have, and I realized I haven't really bought much more than what I've had for the last several years. And maybe I should consider the Atari computer, or maybe the 5200, or just something new to just have fun with, play around with, do some videos on. I don't know. Just wanted to throw it out there, see what you have to think about it, have to say about it. Have you ever considered any of these systems? Is there reasons why I should not go after any of these systems? Or is there reasons why I should go after some of these systems? Or perhaps there's other systems that I'm not thinking about right now, and maybe I should go after those. Yeah, just kind of throwing it out there. Hope you liked the video. I know this was a little bit long, mostly me rambling, but I just thought this would be a fun topic to open up the discussion on, and just talk about the old systems, the old video games. Anyways, hope you liked the show. Hope you subscribe to my channel. Throw some comments below, and I'll talk to you later.